good morning and welcome to Fox Valley Headline Makers here on WSPY. I'm your host Tyler Bachman and probably joined by one of the funniest guests that I have met at this point in my life. Joel Frieders, Yorkville Alderman. He's with us here today. So Joel, yep, wave at the TV, wave for the cameras. How you doing? Thank you so much for coming today.
Cool.
Appreciate
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Hey, there's so much about you that I know that we wanted to talk about today. We're going to talk about everything from your work as an alderman, things kind of going on in the city. Also want to make sure we talk about some of the items that you do outside of being an alderman as well. You're a published author, a beekeeper, and a property developer too.
Property developer, recovering musician, loving husband, doting husband, and I am employed by 3 insane children.
Yes, indeed. Well, I wanted to first just start off a little bit with this. Let's tell the viewers a little bit about your background and about kind of how you got to the position you are as an alderman, also where you're just from originally in the area.
Okay, so born in Oak Park. My family moved to Aurora to open up a pharmacy, a retail pharmacy, when I was 3, 4, or 5. I don't remember because I was 3, 4, or 5. So I grew up in Aurora. I went to St. Rita for education in elementary school, then I went to Aurora Central Catholic for high school. Did 1 year at Aurora University and then I dropped out. My mother was so proud. I moved to California to kind of chase my aspiring guitar dreams. Played in a bunch of bands in and around the Santa Barbara and Los Angeles area and realized that I don't like being a touring musician. Even though I have a really hard time fully stepping away, it wasn't what I was meant to do. It was exhausting, and I found myself kind of burnt out. So I came back and went to Western Illinois University, where I studied political science and philosophy. I met my wife, Julie, which is all that really matters, and then I graduated. And as I came back, I was interviewing for all these different government jobs, and what they don't tell you when you go to school for a political science degree is that most of the jobs going into political science have anywhere from a 1 to 4 year unpaid internship, which is not a great way to start a family.
That's rough, yeah.
So my family business is we run the Compounder Pharmacy on the southwest side of Aurora, so we're a compounding only pharmacy. So my dad basically said, hey, while you're doing all of your interviews and stuff, please work for me because I'm getting really, really busy. So it went from being really, really busy to, oh my God, we have no time to do anything but make suppositories. So we are the compounder pharmacy, so we make everything from scratch, and we are the suppository repository of the Midwest.
That's a very catchy slogan.
Yes, I made that up. I'm pretty happy with myself.
Very good.
So since I've been working with the family, since me and my wife graduated in 2002, I've been given the freedom by my awesome family to explore the things that either inspire me, make me happy, or can potentially make other people happy. And that's kind of how all these little things that I do, including continuing to be in and around the music industry, if you want to call it that, whether it's in Chicago or out here in Yorkville. I just like to have my fingers on the strings at some point. So with my friends Boyd Ingemanson and Jason Leslie, we were able to start a festival. This summer we had our biggest summer solstice festival ever on the riverfront, which kicked a ton of butt. So we're looking forward to every year it gets bigger and better. And every year we do less and less because now people understand what we were trying to do, and we can actually let the festival organically grow and promote itself, as opposed to not sleeping for months at a time, assuming that no one was going to show up, and what am I going to do with all of this beer?
Well, that's such a cool thing, though. Let's touch on that real quick because that's such an awesome thing. I talked to Boyd earlier this year about summer solstice, and such an interesting, cool thing to have an indie music festival in Yorkville.
Yeah. So when you try to explain to people that we're going to bring you anywhere from 15 to 40 bands that you've never heard before, but to get you to the riverfront, we're going to bring beers that you've never tasted before, and then some beers that you've had before because you know you're a creature of habit and you refuse to drink anything other than the staples made out of rice and corn. So when we first started doing it, we had 1 or 2 acts that had a national presence, but you realize that in a small town like Yorkville, most people don't really care about anything that isn't on the radio because there's just no time for it. It's not in front of them. When you're in Chicago, everything is independent and freshly created. Well, Boyd and myself, him being involved on the production side and me being involved from the musician side, I know what I like as a musician. And then we have Jason Leslie, who was brewing all of the beer, and he was looking at it from the side of marketing, like how do we get these bands to not take $5 grand for a 45-minute set? How do we get them here and have them love it so that not only do they use a megaphone and tell everyone about Yorkville, but they want to come back. And when they can't do the festival, they go, how else can I be involved with you? So what we did is we created a welcoming environment We have a green room that's basically catered by Jason's wife, and she's an amazing cook.
Very good.
But then we rent out all of Hoover, and we have like a musician community after hours, and they sleep here for free. And yeah, you're sleeping in a bunk, but you just played a show for 500 people that have never heard you before.
Yeah, that's
that was the first year. Like now we're over 1,000 people every year since that second year, and now the festival has kind of taken on a life of its own, and that all we really do is support its constant curation. And now that we have the Law Office Pub and Music Hall in Yorkville, corner of Van Emmon and 47, now that we have that, it's this steady stream of all of the bands that either were auditioning for Solstice or have already played Solstice and are like, I just want to be in Yorkville. So you have bands that will play all of the major cities and then Yorkville on a Thursday night or Friday night. And they don't care that there's only 75 to 100 people there, because those 75 to 100 people are going to buy a record, they're going to buy a t-shirt, and then they're going to actually become friends with them on Facebook. And now you have this interwoven community of people that just want to make noise and have noise made in front of them. So it's a beautiful thing. So whenever you see Boyd Ingemanson, I always smack him on the bottom, but smack him somewhere, because he's done amazing work in Yorkville.
Sure.
So.
Well, let's bring it back to this too.
Sure.
Tell me how you got involved with obviously running to be an alderman in the city of Yorkville. Why do you want to be a public servant? It's a hard job, I know. Being
an elected official sucks. But I did know that McDonald's was going to be remodeled about 5 or 6 minutes before everyone else did. So it does have its perks. The original intent, it was kind of twofold. One is I live in Whispering Meadows, which is the subdivision kind of behind, or up and behind Home Depot and Target over there off of Cannonball. And I moved in September of '06. So next month it'll be my 11th year living in Whispering Meadows. I still don't have a completed roadway. I'm on my 5th car. Come on, that's a little ridiculous. So I initially got into it because I'm like, hey, I can make noise, I can be annoying. And I figured what I'll do is I'll just keep talking about the roads and maybe something will happen. Well, at the same time, I had a health scare in 2009, and that kind of forced me into paying attention to what I'm putting in my body. And I went to city council one day and I said, do you realize that there's a new sales tax in town to help pay for the infrastructure? I don't spend any money in Yorkville. Like, I buy gas in Aurora because I work in Aurora. I buy all of my groceries at Woodman's or Fruitful Yield. I don't spend any money in Yorkville, and it's because there's no organic produce that I can buy. Even the farmers in Yorkville don't sell organic produce, except for Soul Gardens, the only USDA certified organic farm in all of Kendall County. So I went in asking.
We better be booking you for this advertising.
I have bees on his property, so we do this all the time.
Sure, go ahead.
So I basically said, hey, there's no good food in Yorkville. I mean, at least food that I can't eat without, busting out in a rash. Or my face ballooning. And they're like, oh, that's cute. And they all thought that I was funny. And I left. I'm like, they didn't throw me out. I'll do it again. So I waited a couple weeks, and I went in and I sat down and I basically got up at Citizens Comment. And it was already like an hour-and-a-half meeting because they did budget that night. So I'm like, all right. And I pulled out like 15 pages. It was like 4 paragraphs, but I wanted to scare them. So they're all like, oh, God, here he goes again. Some people come in with a constitution and want to bang the gavel for 55 minutes, and that's their right, but it doesn't make any point. So I did it again. I'm like, I would like you guys to actively pursue better food for my community. And nobody would like, okay, thanks for coming. And I left because, of course, citizen comment, you're just making a comment and you're leaving. But I was a little fired up. So I started calling like Target and Jewel and stuff like that. Like, how do we get better food in here? And I got some people to call me back. But I basically, through one of my neighbors, Ann, she's like, you should totally run for alderman because that guy that's been there for 12 years or however long, he doesn't do anything. Okay. Whatever. So my buddy Jason Leslie was an alderman at one time, and I called him like, hey, dude, do you think that I should do this? He goes, ask your wife first, then call me back. So, what does that mean? So he's like, just ask your wife, because it'll take a lot out of you. And you have to read a lot, and you end up being gone, and you don't make any money. I'm like, you don't make any money? He's like, well, you make $400-something a month. I'm like, I can make that mowing lawns, and I wouldn't get yelled at by random strangers in front of the bacon at Target. I mean, come on. So I asked my wife, she goes, yeah, that's fine. Are you going to get the roads fixed? I'm like, not you too. So I called Jason back. I'm like, yeah, she said it's fine. So he gave me the rundown, and this is what they expect of you. There are no rules. You just have to be able to work with these people. Like, okay. So I ran for office with one sign, and it said, this is my only sign. Please look twice. It had a big old stalk of broccoli on it because I'm a big fan of broccoli. And I had neighbors that were volunteering to move the sign around my neighborhood. So I don't have time to market myself. I don't kiss any babies. I didn't do any campaigns. I'm like, hey, I'll do it.
Sure.
Well, I won by 7 votes. And then I have to give a shout out to Ryan Morton. That night he called me and I accidentally dropped an F-bomb on the radio, which is probably my proudest moment. Again,
Ooh,
my
yeah.
mother was so proud. But I realized that all of these people thought that I was going to come in and just start flipping tables. When I just want to learn what's going on,
Sure.
maybe give some input, but I really just want my roads to get fixed at the very base. And I wouldn't mind, you know, buying some cucumbers from Yorkville that don't make me break out in a frickin' rash. So over like the first 3 or 4 months, there was this apprehension from people on city staff and the other electeds, like, what is this guy's problem? And then they realized I'm just a regular guy. I just really want to get my roads fixed. Because if I get my roads fixed, I can leave all of you people behind. Just kidding. But we've wanted these roads for 11 years, and they're still in the state that they're in.
Yeah.
You know, lengthy legal battle, what have you. It's not worth beating a dead horse.
Sure.
But I have to drive over that dead horse every morning and every afternoon when I come home.
Well, and I know, and we'll talk just a little bit about this because I know we've had quite a bit of coverage on it ourselves. There was a good showing of a residence that came out, I think, last month about the Whispering Meadows
in July. Yeah,
issue.
it was great.
And I guess the one thing I want to ask you is, we've talked with you a little bit before about this issue and in terms of the ongoing battle that is. I mean, do you think that there is an end in sight in this battle? I know it's something that you want to get taken care of.
Yes, I think there is an end in sight. Whether or not I'm alive to see it is yet to be seen. But the city is now aware that, yeah, it's only a little, 7% of the population or whatever it is. It's a super small number, but it's 150 houses.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a full community in there. At one point, they were going to build a school in there, and all of the kids were going to go to one school. That's enough, like, voice to have to listen. So, I mean, all the aldermen have already been like, yeah, we got to fix this. This is ridiculous. It's how do you pay for something that doesn't impact the entire city? And legally, the city doesn't even have ownership of the roads yet. So I see it from both sides. One, because I'm not closed-minded. But then from the other side, I'm angry because, come on, man, just fix my frickin' roads.
Yeah.
But I understand the legal issue. I understand the moral issue. But I also understand that if you don't spend $1 million now, you might spend $2 million later. And that's not fiscally responsible,
Right.
just as not maintaining them in the first place.
Well, and just for anybody who doesn't know, just maybe give a quick summary of the issue that's at
I don't do anything quick, Tyler. So developer went bankrupt in like 07, 08, 09, and then they had these things called security bonds. When instead of having an SSA, which pays for your infrastructure, like everything under your road and everything on top of your road, we pay a little bit more for our property, and then instead of paying monthly, it's rolled into our mortgage, and that, if the developer ever goes bankrupt, should be called, and they use that cash to pay for the infrastructure improvements, which we could have gone to Bristol Bay and gotten an SSA, which it's already been paid, and the roads are smooth. But we didn't. We bought in Whispering Meadows. Well, what had happened is the developer went bankrupt, so after the bond was called, basically the bond company, which I won't mention, actually I should mention their name. The bond company refused to pay out, saying that there was either an expiration date or that it was written wrong.
Right.
And you're messing with people's lives. So, like, I understand that people make mistakes. If an elected official screws up, we can't get sued because there's something called tort immunity.
Yeah,
I learned about that my first week. I love tort immunity. It's one of the reasons why I can say the F-bomb on WSPY.
Please do not, no.
But knowing that mistakes happen, whether it's a scrivener's error or a clerical error, the fact of the matter is, we made an agreement with the developer who made an agreement with the bond company. There was money that exchanged hands. Regardless of the burps that happened throughout that process, the project still hasn't been finished, and it's been 11 years. So now instead of just capping the road and moving on with our lives and not talking about this and not getting this as your alderman, now we've come to this, and it's like somebody has to do something, the whole pooper get off the pot thing, but somebody has to be the big boy in the room, and it's really, really weird when the big boy in the room has a 6.6-inch piece of broccoli tattooed on their
You do. There's another tattoo there as well that has to do with bees. We'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we do talk about really the most important thing we want to talk about today, and that is Suicide Prevention Month coming up next month. And I know you've been a big advocate for that. One of the things that we had a bit of a story on here was when you sat in for Gary Galinsky as Mayor Pro Tem, and you used your ending statements to kind of talk about your advocacy for that. And I know you've been working on a proclamation. Let's tell people about that.
Sure. So at the behest of myself, because I constantly feel like I don't have enough time in the day to adequately portray the importance of this topic.
Yeah.
I'm really freaking emotional about it because
I know, it's a hard topic.
I just lost a friend of mine at the end of July who was 40 and probably one of the coolest people I've ever met. But thinking to myself, I don't have enough time in the day to make people wake up and realize that everything is fixable. And I can tell you from experience that when you assume that the world is a mountain and it's on top of you, not only is there somebody that has it worse than you, but there are 5,000 people out there that you don't even know that are willing to take the time to sit on the phone with you and just talk through it. So Suicide Prevention Services, my friend Jen Stepika and her mom have been running this for a while. I do as much as I can with them because, like I said, I don't have the time or like you saw, I got a little weepy there. I can't vocalize it. So I asked the mayor, I said, hey, can I do a proclamation for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in September? And like my mayor always says, yeah, whatever you want. So I wrote the proclamation. My friend Tony Scott from The Record kind of went through it and took out all of my F-bombs because I tend to do that. And then I sent it over to Jen. She's like, this is magical. I mean, okay. So I sent it off to the city, and they didn't say, okay, it's in the packet, but it's on the mayor's report for tonight's city council meeting. So as I'm sitting there, I'm like, cool. Well, do you know that 4 people come to my city council meeting, and you're one of them? Nobody cares about city business unless they have something to yell about. So I figured, how do I get this out to as many people as possible? So thankfully, since I've been an elected official, I've made friends with most of the municipal officials in most of the nearby communities, just because everybody is a regular person. The only true politicians kind of exist from DuPage County into Cook County, so I don't have to worry about that. So I emailed the mayors of Montgomery, Oswego, and St. Charles, and Aurora, and then I emailed some of the aldermen. I'm like, hey, I wrote this thing. It's not going to save you any money. If anything, you may actually lose money because you got to print it out a piece of paper and sign it. But it's just some words in support of something that I'm passionate about. And Gail from Oswego was like, absolutely. Matt from Montgomery and one of their aldermen, Doug, are like, yeah, we got it. Mr. Rogina Ray from St. Charles, and I call him Mr. Rogina because he's taller than me and he can kill me. But he's like, yeah, absolutely. I sent it over to Steve Anderson, state rep. I'm like, hey, can you just give this to everyone? Because not that I don't need any accolades, but I need people to know that Suicide Prevention Services is available, and these people do awesome work. And you can call up and talk for 5 minutes or 5 hours. These people are there for a reason, and they're a hell of a lot better at talking than I am. I'm the kind of person where I think of the people that I've lost and I get choked up. These people are trained to not take things any farther. And it's like, I try to participate as much as possible with Suicide Prevention Services. They have a fundraiser in March normally that is 50 Men Who Cook. I love food, so I mean it's food and suicide prevention. They kind of go hand in hand in my opinion, because if you kill yourself, you can't eat food. That is food true. Is awesome.
Food is great.
Which reminds me, my kids don't eat enough protein and vegetables, so I would like them to remember, eat your vegetables.
Yes,
or
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, well, great. We're going to take a quick break on that note, and we'll come right back and talk a lot more with Joel Frieders here today.
Thanks.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at America Let's Do Lunch.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
They call me Prince like I'm royalty or something. But the places I've lived ain't no palaces. So I don't need grilled salmon or a new scratching post. Just give me a cardboard box and a can of tuna and we're good. You can even change my name. I'm cool being the kitty formerly known as Prince.
They're coming. Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Camera is working.
It would be that one. We're back here on Fox Belly Headline Makers. I'm telling you, you're the funniest guy that I think I've had on my show here today.
That's not saying much for Plano. Come on, guys.
Back with Joel Frieders here on Fox Belly Headline Makers, and we got a lot to talk about still. You're quite a busy man in terms of what you do, and I wanted to certainly maybe end off here for a second on just a couple of the council things that we've had going on.
Sure.
I know last meeting here we had a few residents come out talking about the proposed Casey's gas station location, which is on 34.
And McHugh.
In McHugh, yeah, and there was some discussion about traffic in that area. A possible different location is what some of them were asking for. I know I talked with Bart Olson a little bit about it, and as far as he was kind of concerned, you know, they bring the issue, or they bring the proposal essentially trying to put it in that spot, and there's not a whole lot the city can do about a different location. Is that right?
It's when someone has money and they want to spend it, if you have no impact on their money, you have no opinion.
Yeah.
You can say yes or no based on the current zoning issues, or if you can't put a adult novelty store next to a daycare. That we can get involved in. But if you want to put a gas station somewhere and it's zoned commercial, that's what a gas station is.
Yeah.
Like the Casey's things, I kind of see it from both sides. Like there's a lady that lives 250 feet from the property line. Like I get it, that wouldn't be cool. But breakfast pizza. The other thing is that people talk a lot about traffic, and I have, like I said, I got friends all over the area that are involved either in, you know, as a police officer, or like they're in streets and sanitation. So I asked the question: when you have people that are concerned about traffic at a specific location, how do you get rid of the traffic? Well, you either lower the speed limit or you put something in there that slows them down. So if somebody added a gas station to a busy corner, would it slow it down? He goes, well, more traffic means less speed. Okay. What if they also served breakfast pizza? He goes, well,
breakfast pizza,
the gloves are off. So, I mean, it's still up for grabs. I mean, they pushed it back to September to kind of coincide with their county stuff. But yeah, it's anybody's guess right now. It is a really weird spot for a gas station, but I am not in the gas station business, and I don't pretend to be.
Yep.
I just really, really appreciate breakfast pizza.
I can get behind that. I understand. So, all right. Well, I wanted to talk about this too. Some of the really cool things that have been going on around Yorkville. Actually, I know over on Kennedy Road. Yes. This was in conjunction with the county. I know there's state dollars that were behind this. There was also a group that was raising
Push for the Path.
Push for the Path. Yep. The bike path, the Kennedy Road bike path coming in.
So when they put down the gravel, like my kids, one of my kids goes to Autumn Creek and the other go to BGS. So I'm on Kennedy 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And first off, when they did the resurfacing, it was like, because that road's been horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that Mill Road will never get done. We will never do Mill Road. Mill Road will be as bad as it is now and worse into perpetuity. But when they did the resurfacing at Kennedy and they started like cutting down those trees, you have to ask yourself, why did they wait to resurface the road until the trees were gone? Or why did those things kind of happen almost in tandem? And I was talking to our streets guy, and I'm like, why is it so perfect? He goes, so the trees? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what do trees make? I'm like, leaves? He goes, shade. I'm like, yeah. He goes, and when they're this big, it's shade all the time. I'm like, yeah. He goes, so if the road never completely dries, it's going to fall apart. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. He goes, yeah. It's unfortunate you have to cut down all these beautiful trees, but part of the problem is we've created a major arterial road where we've built schools and parks and golf courses off of a road that is tree lined with trees that are ginormous. So the idea that you chop down the south side of all of those trees, yeah, it's a slam to the scenery. But now you have an open roadway. It's completely like visible. And now that we have this bike path, I'm hoping that we're going to see a boatload more people from Yorkville using it.
Sure.
I mean, I've already seen people driving on the limestone. So I mean, it's a pretty exciting thing. And the people that were against it, I understand that people, you know, aren't in favor of, again, Whispering Meadows roads. You're going to spend money that we're supposed to use for all of us on just this little portion of road. That doesn't seem like a good use of money. Okay. well then they will raise the money. So I'm trying to actually do something like this for Whispering Meadows roads, kind of like Push for the Path, but we're going to do 5K races where the insurance waiver is about that thick, and it's going to be the pothole dodge.
The pothole
and the
dodge,
trophies
okay.
are going to be casts with a bunch of like, you know, pothole crap in it. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Gotcha.
But no, Kennedy Road looks amazing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to this. I wanted to make sure we get enough time to talk about some of the stuff you do too outside of council. And this is actually, you're the owner of Aurora Bee Company, right?
Correct, yeah.
You're a beekeeper, as with the tattoo there, yeah.
I've been stung, yes.
I'm sure you have. So tell me a little bit about that. And I know, I want to mention this too, you just had the mayor of Aurora in with you.
Yeah, so the mayor of Aurora, Richard Irvin, came out yesterday. Him and Clayton Muhammad came out to a small little area that I have some hives. And they were both terrified of bees, which, you know, I'll admit, like, I'm not a huge fan of being unveiled in front of bees. I don't beekeep with my shirt off. I'm not one of those weird guys. I wear gloves and a coat and a veil, and I wear jeans and boots because I don't like being stung. So there's nothing wrong with not liking to be stung. But yeah, they were interested, so they came out. I started beekeeping in 2011 or 2012, and the reason I got into it is in 2002 I went to Russia with an agricultural group from Western Illinois University, and I kept seeing honeybees everywhere. Not actual bees, but like little combs, and then we'd be in the metro stations in Moscow, and there's like an ornate brass plaque with a honeybee on it. It's like, what is that? It's so cold here. Why would there even be bees? Well, we get a little bit farther away, and we're at an agricultural university. It's either Ryazan or Timryazov. And the interpreter, I think her name was Olga, but she was explaining that we were in the first location, or the first location on the planet where they had successfully artificially inseminated a queen bee. And I was like, you know, I was being a little bit less mature version of Joel Frieders. And she kind of smacks me and she goes, "You're going to be our beekeeper, aren't you?" And I was like, whatever, haha. So I kept being immature, and that lasted up until about 5 minutes ago. But I'm also a recovering musician, so I was doing a lot of rehearsals for a big show in 2011, and I'm on Facebook publicizing this pre-show before we go up to Minnesota for the big festival. And on the side thing of Facebook, it said, "Beekeeping class, $19 at the Plano Wabansi." I'm like, I have $19. So my sister ended up going to the class and basically telling me that, yeah, you should go do this. You'll love this guy. So I ended up mentoring under Ed Bell from Belfry Bees in Oswego for about a year and a half. And since then, I've gone from 1 and 2 to as many as 18, and now I have 14 hives. Wow. 5 different locations around Aurora, Millbrook, Yorkville, and Oswego.
Well, they're wrapping me up, so I want to get to one more thing too.
Sure.
You're a published author.
I am. I did it myself.
Tell our viewers a little bit about your work. You're on your third book, going on your third book now? This is the first one, I believe. So the first book is a book about bee pictures. That's my first actual word book. And then I have another one in this series called This Call May Be Recorded 2. The next one's called This Call May Be Recorded as well. These are all just phone conversations of people that call into my pharmacy and don't normally interact with other humans. So I've kind of, my friend Jose Garibaldi is an illustrator out of Los Angeles. He does Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Dogman and Captain Underpants. So because he's my friend, I roped him into it. So he's illustrated my first 2 books that are written, and then I have a Christmas book coming out hopefully towards the end of October. Called Mind Your Christmas, which is actually half based on a true story which occurred as an alderman. How did you decide to put this together into start writing a book? So
one of the ways that I keep myself sane, because I am insanely busy, is that I share with people the things on Facebook that I find humorous. And it's either self-deprecating or I'm kind of making fun of a situation. And people go, "When are you going to put a book of this out?" And I did.
Very good.
So I'm on my third.
Thank you so much, Joel, for joining us here today. We were with Joel Frieders here, and I'm Tyler Bachman. Have a great day.
I'm pushing the credits.
Pushing the credits up on the screen.